There are four simple words that, when spoken with the right heart, can melt walls, build trust, and draw people closer to you. Most of us underestimate just how much power language holds. We think attraction is about appearance, status, or luck. But the truth is, it's often the words we choose, and more importantly, the energy behind them, that shape how people feel about us. Words are not just sounds. They are carriers of energy. They can soothe or sting, open a heart or close it, invite someone in or push them away. Every conversation you have is more than an exchange of information. It's an exchange of feeling. And people rarely remember the details of what you said, but they never forget how your words made them feel. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever heard someone say something so simple, yet it touched you deeply? Maybe it was, "I believe in you," or "I'm proud of you." Just a few words, but they changed how you stood, how you breathed, how you carried yourself. That's not just psychology, it's biology. Those words triggered a release of chemicals in your brain that made you feel safer, more alive, more connected. And this is why words are more powerful than we realize. They don't just travel through the air. They travel into the nervous system, into the heart, into the memory of another person. They become bridges of connection, trust, and even attraction. When you understand this, you stop treating language as something casual. You begin to see that every word you speak is an opportunity to strengthen a bond or weaken it, to bring someone closer or push them further away. And once you grasp the weight of that truth, you'll never look at communication the same way again. Because the deepest kind of attraction doesn't come from appearance or charm. It comes from resonance, the feeling people get when your words carry sincerity, presence, and truth. That is when walls fall. That is when trust is born. That is when people lean closer, not because you demanded attention, but because your presence made them feel safe. So as we begin this journey together, remember, words are not just letters. They are energy. And when you align your words with sincerity, they can change not just how others see you, but how they feel with you. And that feeling, that quiet sense of connection, is the essence of true attraction.
You know, one of the most overlooked truths about attraction isn't about looks or charm or even the words we choose. It's about alignment. The deepest kind of magnetism comes when your words, your tone, and your energy are all telling the same story. Think about it for a second. Have you ever met someone who says all the right things, but something just feels off? They tell you they're happy for you, but their tone is flat. They say they care, but their eyes drift away. In those moments, you don't believe the words. You believe the dissonance, and trust starts to fade. That's because people aren't listening only with their ears. They're listening with their entire nervous system. They're scanning for congruence. Does what this person say match what they really feel? If the answer is yes, we lean closer. If the answer is no, we pull back. This is why some of the most powerful people you'll ever meet aren't the ones who speak the most. They're the ones whose presence amplifies their words. A simple phrase, "I'm proud of you," or "I understand," lands differently when it's carried by a steady voice, by eyes that don't waver, by a calm energy that says, "I mean this." Let me give you an example. I had a friend who rarely talked in group settings. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, but when he finally did speak, the whole room leaned in. Why? because there was no gap between his words and who he was. His tone, his posture, his sincerity, they all aligned. That's why a single sentence from him carried more weight than a 5-minute speech from someone else. And here's the part we often forget. You don't need to be perfect or eloquent or endlessly clever. What people crave isn't polished charm. What they crave is safety. They want to know that what you say is real. They want to feel that your words are an extension of who you are, not a mask you're putting on. So ask yourself, when I speak, do my words and my energy point in the same direction? Or am I trying to say one thing while feeling another? Because the truth is, people can sense the gap without ever naming it. And when you close that gap, when sincerity and presence become one, you don't have to chase attention anymore. You become magnetic by simply being real. That is the quiet power of alignment. Not the loudest voice, not the fanciest vocabulary, but the rarest gift of all, words and presence that match. And when you embody that, people don't just hear you, they feel you.
Let me share something we often overlook. People don't remember most of the words we say. They forget the exact sentences, the clever phrasing, even the advice. But what lingers, sometimes for years, is how we made them feel. Think back for a moment. Can you recall the exact words a loved one spoke to you 10 years ago? Probably not. But you can remember the warmth in their voice, the comfort you felt, or maybe the sting of a harsh tone. That's because the human heart doesn't store language the way a computer does. It stores emotional imprints. I remember a teacher I had in my early years. To be honest, I can't quote a single lecture word for word, but I'll never forget the way she looked me in the eye and said, "I believe in you." Those 4 words shaped me more than any textbook could. It wasn't the phrase itself. It was the sense of trust and belief behind it. That's what anchored in my memory. And it's the same in your relationships today. You don't need to master speeches or memorize perfect lines. What matters is the feeling your words carry. When you say, "I appreciate you," but you let your tone carry gratitude, the other person will feel it. When you whisper, "I'm here for you," and back it up with steady presence, that moment will live in their memory, not because of the syllables, but because of the safety and peace those words created. Here's the truth. We live in a noisy world. Everyone is talking, posting, shouting for attention, but very few are leaving behind feelings worth remembering. When your words become a source of calm, of inspiration, of reassurance, then you instantly stand apart. You become the kind of person people never forget, not because you dazzled them with eloquence, but because you gave them something rare, emotional resonance. So the question to ask yourself isn't, what can I say to impress? The better question is, what do I want this person to feel when I leave the room? Do I want them to feel lighter, more hopeful, more valued? Because that's the mark that lasts. Words fade, feelings endure. And if your words plant seeds of peace, of safety, of genuine encouragement, then years from now, when the sentences are long forgotten, the person will still remember you, not for what you said, but for how you made them feel. That is the true power of language, not in the letters, but in the legacy of emotion it leaves behind.
One of the deepest human needs is simpler than most people realize. We all want to be acknowledged, not just for the trophies we've won or the milestones we've hit, but for the effort we put in, often unseen. Think about it. How many times in your life have you worked hard behind the scenes only for no one to notice? Maybe it was the long hours you spent caring for your family, or the patience you showed at work, or the personal battles you fought quietly every day. Recognition for those moments means far more than any generic compliment. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone says to you, "Good job." It's nice, sure, but it feels hollow. Now compare that to, "I noticed how hard you've been working, even when no one else thanked you." Do you feel the difference? One is surface level, the other goes straight to the heart. That's the power of true acknowledgement. It sees what most of the world overlooks. And then there's validation, the twin brother of acknowledgement. Validation is when someone tells you, "I understand why you feel that way," or "what you're going through makes sense." Those words may sound simple, but their impact is profound. Because too often in life, we hear the opposite. "You're overreacting," or "it's not a big deal." Those words dismiss, they isolate, but validation does the opposite. It tells you you're not crazy, you're not alone, your feelings matter. When you give someone that gift, when you reflect their worth back to them through acknowledgement and validation, you build a bridge that's almost impossible to break. Because deep down, every human being craves to feel seen, heard, and understood. Even the strongest among us carry that longing. And here's the beauty. You don't need to flatter or exaggerate. In fact, flattery often rings false. What people remember is the moment you notice the little things, the unseen effort, the hidden pain. That's what sticks. That's what makes them lean closer to you. So ask yourself, when was the last time you really acknowledged someone in your life? Not just with a casual thanks, but with words that showed you truly noticed their effort. When was the last time you validated someone's feelings instead of rushing to fix them or brush them aside? Because acknowledgement and validation are not signs of weakness, they are signs of wisdom. They are what make people feel safe enough to trust, to open up, to connect. And once that trust is built, attraction follows naturally. Remember this, humans thrive on acknowledgement the way plants thrive on sunlight. Without it, we may survive, but we never truly flourish. And when you become the one who gives that light, people will never forget the way you made them feel.
We live in a world where everyone feels the need to talk, to explain, to argue, to prove their point. But sometimes silence speaks louder than any string of words ever could. Think about the last time someone truly listened to you, not with interruptions, not waiting for their turn to speak, but with full attention. Maybe they didn't say much at all, yet somehow you walked away feeling lighter, almost healed. That's the quiet power of silence. Silence, when used with presence, becomes a gift. It tells the other person, "You matter enough for me to give you space. I respect you enough to let your voice fill the air, not mine." It creates room for emotions to breathe, for thoughts to settle, for connection to deepen. I remember sitting with a close friend years ago. He was going through a difficult loss. I thought I needed the right words, something wise, something comforting. But when the moment came, nothing I rehearsed felt right. So I just sat with him. Minutes passed with almost no words, and yet later,
He told me, "What helped me most was that you didn't try to fix it. You were just there." That's when I realized silence can sometimes heal in ways words never can. Of course, silence can also be misused. If it comes from coldness or avoidance, it pushes people away. But when it flows from presence, from steady companionship, it becomes the strongest form of communication. It says, "You don't have to perform. You don't have to explain. I'm with you as you are." Think of music for a moment. What gives music its beauty isn't only the notes, it's also the pauses between them. Those small spaces create rhythm, tension, and release. In the same way, silence in conversation isn't emptiness, it's the space that gives meaning to words. Without it, everything blurs into noise. So ask yourself, when was the last time you allowed silence to do the talking? When was the last time you sat with someone and let them feel your presence without rushing to fill the air? In relationships, in love, even in influence, this skill is rare, and that's why it's magnetic. The truth is, silence doesn't mean absence. In its purest form, silence is presence. It's the moment where words are no longer needed, because your attention, your respect, your care are already being felt. And when you master that, when you know when to speak and when to hold back, you discover a subtle kind of power, not the power of persuasion, but the power of presence. And sometimes, that is what touches the heart most deeply.
Most people think words are processed by the mind like numbers on a page, cold, logical, detached. But the truth is, our brains don't work that way. Before logic ever kicks in, words stir emotion. The nervous system reacts first, and only afterward does reason try to catch up. Think about a moment when someone told you, "I'm proud of you." Just 3 simple words. Yet what happened inside your body? Your chest opened. You stood taller. Your breathing slowed. That wasn't imagination. That was biology. Those words triggered a release of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, and oxytocin, the hormone of trust and bonding. It's fascinating, isn't it? A phrase spoken with sincerity doesn't just sound nice, it literally changes how your body feels. It lowers tension, steadies your heart rate, even shifts the way you hold yourself. Science confirms what our hearts have known all along. Language doesn't just shape thoughts, it shapes physiology. I once met a man who told me his life turned around because of 4 words his coach said, "I believe in you." He had been struggling for years, doubting himself at every step, but hearing those words, spoken calmly, sincerely, lit something in him that no lecture, no statistic, no self-help book ever had. His brain chemistry shifted, his spirit lifted, and he carried that strength forward. Now here's the key. The brain cannot distinguish between empty phrases and real ones based on words alone. It scans for congruence, the tone, the timing, the presence behind the message. "I'm proud of you," said casually, without eye contact, barely registers. But the same words spoken slowly, with warmth and steady presence, can alter someone's entire state of being. This is why careless words cut so deep. A thoughtless insult doesn't just bruise the mind, it spikes stress hormones, raises blood pressure, and can linger for years. But encouraging words, sincere acknowledgments, they release the opposite: calm, bonding,
resilience. So let me ask you, what kind of chemistry are you creating in the lives around you? Are your words fueling anxiety, or are they planting peace? Are they releasing stress, or are they releasing safety? Every conversation you have is not just an exchange of information, it's a biological event. Your words can lift someone's spirit or crush it. They can spark trust or shut it down. That is the responsibility and the privilege we carry with language. When you understand this, you stop underestimating the power of simple phrases. You realize that the right words, spoken at the right time, can literally heal. And once you start to speak with that kind of intention, people don't just hear your words, they feel them deep in their bones.
Every human being carries the same quiet longing to be seen and to be heard. It doesn't matter how strong we pretend to be, how independent we appear, or how much we say, "I don't need anyone." Deep down, we crave recognition. We crave the moment when someone looks at us and says, not always with words, but with presence, "I see you, I hear you, you matter." Think back to a time when someone truly understood you. Maybe you were sharing a struggle, and instead of rushing to give advice or brush it aside, they simply listened. They nodded, their eyes steady, their attention fully on you. In that moment, something shifted inside you, didn't it? You felt lighter, safer, almost relieved. That's emotional resonance. It's the invisible thread that binds us closer to others. Attraction, connection, trust, they don't begin with perfect words. They begin with resonance. When you speak, or even when you remain silent, and another person feels understood, they lean closer. They don't need to analyze why. Their heart simply knows, here is someone safe. I once watched an older couple in a cafe. They barely spoke, but the husband reached across the table and lightly touched his wife's hand. She smiled, and tears filled her eyes. No words, no speeches, just resonance. She felt seen. She felt heard. That single gesture carried more weight than hours of conversation. Deep listening is one of the rarest forms of love. To listen fully means quieting the noise in your own mind, the urge to interrupt, to fix, to judge, and simply being present. When you do that, you're not just gathering information, you're telling the other person, your experience matters, your emotions are valid, I'm here with you. And here's the beauty. Resonance is magnetic. It doesn't require charm, wealth, or performance. It requires presence. When people feel understood in your presence, they return, not because you dazzled them, but because you gave them something priceless, safety for their soul. So let me ask you, how often do you practice this kind of listening? How often do you slow down, set aside distractions, and let someone's words echo inside you before responding? Because in those moments, you're not just building connection, you're creating emotional resonance that people carry with them long after. Remember, people may forget what you said, but they will never forget how deeply you made them feel understood. And that resonance, calm, safe, undeniable, is what keeps them coming back to you again
and again. There's something magnetic about a person who doesn't need to pretend. Authentic energy has a quiet strength. It doesn't shout for attention. It doesn't put on a mask. It doesn't try to impress. It simply is. And in a world full of noise and performance, that kind of presence is rare and irresistible. You've probably felt it before. You meet someone, and even though they don't say much, you sense they're grounded. Their words, their tone, their body language, all aligned. No dissonance, no hidden agenda, just truth in motion. That's authentic energy. It draws people closer, not by force, but by invitation. But here's the part many of us overlook. Authenticity is not about perfection. In fact, it's the opposite. Real connection often comes through vulnerability, when we're willing to show that we don't have it all together. Think about the relationships you value most. Chances are they're not with the people who seemed flawless, but with those who let you see behind the curtain. Maybe they admitted their struggles. Maybe they shared a fear or a doubt. And in that moment, you felt safer sharing your own. That's the paradox. Our imperfections, when shared with sincerity, can create more intimacy than our strengths ever could. I remember a colleague who once told our team, "I was scared I'd fail on this project, but I pushed through anyway." That honesty didn't make us lose respect for him. It made us admire him more. Because vulnerability isn't weakness. It's courage. It tells the world, "I trust you enough to show you who I really am." And when you do that, something beautiful happens. Walls come down. Others stop performing. They relax. They lean in. Your authenticity gives them permission to be human too. And that, more than anything, builds lasting connection. So, ask yourself, are you hiding behind perfection, or are you willing to let others see the real you? Because the truth is, invincibility creates distance, but vulnerability creates closeness. People aren't drawn to the strongest mask in the room. They're drawn to the most genuine heart. Authentic energy is quiet, steady, congruent. Vulnerability is the bridge that lets others walk closer to you. Together, they form a presence that doesn't just attract attention, it earns trust. And trust, once built, becomes the foundation of connection that lasts a lifetime.
The truth is, even the most beautiful words can fall flat if spoken at the wrong time. Timing is the silent partner of communication. It's not just what you say, but when you say it that determines whether your words land or drift away unheard. Have you ever tried to comfort someone who wasn't ready to listen? You might have said the right thing, even with the best of intentions, but it didn't reach them, because in that moment, they weren't ready to receive it. Like planting a seed in dry soil, the words couldn't take root. But if you wait until the soil is fertile, when the heart is open, those same words can blossom into something life-changing. Sometimes the wisest choice isn't to speak at all. Silence or simply waiting often carries more power than rushing to fill the space. A pause can show patience. It can create room for trust to grow. And when the right moment finally arrives, even a few words can cut through the noise like a bell in the night.
But timing alone isn't enough. There's another force that shapes how deeply your words are trusted: consistency. When your words are not just spoken once, but repeated with sincerity, over time, they become anchors in someone's life. Think of water dripping on stone. One drop doesn't do much, but steady repetition carves deep pathways. In the same way, when you affirm someone's value again and again, not through routine, but with genuine intention, you create a bond that becomes almost unshakable. People come to rely on your words not because they're flashy or clever, but because they've proven steady and true. I remember a father who used to tell his son every single day, "I love you. I'm proud of you." At first, the boy rolled his eyes. It seemed ordinary. But years later, in moments of doubt, those words echoed in his heart. They became a foundation of stability because they weren't spoken once in a while. They were spoken consistently, sincerely, day after day. So here's the question. Are your words fleeting or are they dependable? Do you speak encouragement only when it's convenient, or do you plant it steadily, drop by drop, until it becomes part of someone's identity? The secret is this: one powerful phrase at the right time can change a day, but the same phrase, repeated with sincerity over time, can change a life. When timing and consistency meet, words stop being noise. They become a force of trust. And trust is what makes connection and attraction endure.
When it comes down to it, attraction has never been about tricks, appearances, or clever lines. Those things might catch attention for a moment, but they never hold it. What truly lasts, what truly draws people in, is presence and sincerity. The secret of 4 simple words is not that they are magical in themselves, but that they unlock something deeper inside us. They remind us that human beings crave recognition. We all want to feel seen, valued, and understood. And when your words carry that intention, they open doors in the heart that no performance ever could. You don't need to chase attention when you embody this truth. Attention begins to find you, because people are not drawn to perfection. They are drawn to how you make them feel about themselves. A phrase spoken with calm sincerity, a tone that carries warmth, an energy that is real. These are the things that leave a mark. Think about the people you remember most in your life. Chances are you don't remember every sentence they ever said, but you remember the way they made you feel in their presence. Maybe they gave you peace in a storm. Maybe they reminded you of your worth when you had forgotten it. That is the legacy of authentic words. So here is the truth. The real power is not in the words alone, but in the alignment behind them. When your words match your tone, your body language, and your energy, they resonate. And resonance is what lingers. Resonance is what builds trust. Resonance is what creates attraction that doesn't fade with time. The 4 words we've been circling around are not meant to impress, but to connect. They are keys to the human heart, and when you use them with presence, sincerity, and patience, they do more than communicate. They transform. Because at the end of the day, people may forget your cleverness, your looks, your achievements, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And when your words consistently give them safety, hope, and dignity, you become unforgettable. That is the real secret. Attraction that lasts is built not on performance, but on authenticity, not on manipulation, but on recognition.
And when you learn to let your words carry that truth, you don't just touch minds, you touch hearts. And that is the most enduring form of power any of us can ever hold.